All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a story that is just incredibly enduring, totally complex, and honestly deeply misunderstood. Spoiler alert, you know that peaceful utopian Atlantis you've probably seen in movies, the one with mermaids and crystal energy? Yeah, it is completely backwards. Today we're going to uncover the entire 2,000-year life cycle of the Atlantis story. We're literally tracking how a highly specific ancient philosophical thought experiment mutated into this global, multi-billion-dollar cultural phenomenon. Okay, let's dive into this. So, here is our agenda for today. 1. Plato's original warning. 2. The Victorian revival. 3. The Minoan hypothesis. 4. Searching the globe. And 5. The enduring metaphor. Section 1. Plato's original warning. The birth of a myth. To really get Atlantis, we've got to travel all the way back to 4th century BCE Greece. We are stepping right into the philosophical dialogues of Plato, specifically the Timaeus and the Critias, which were written around 360 BCE. And right off the bat, we need to shatter some huge preconceived notions. On one side, we've got the pop culture Atlantis we all know today, utopian peace, mermaids, maybe some flying cars. But in Plato's actual texts, Atlantis wasn't the hero. They were the bad guys. They were this fiercely greedy, aggressive, super advanced naval empire out in the West that ruthlessly conquered parts of Europe and Africa. Plato purposefully created them as a literal antagonist, a dark foil to make his idealized version of ancient Athens look good. And in his story, Athens ultimately beats them, and then the gods violently punish the Atlanteans for their incredible hubris. Now, Plato was a genius-level storyteller. He didn't just toss this out there like a casual fairy tale. He framed the whole thing using this elaborate historical telephone game to give his fiction an absolute aura of ancient truth. He claimed, hey, this didn't start with me. It started with Egyptian priests at Sais who were guarding long-lost records. And those priests supposedly passed the tale to the famous Athenian lawmaker Solon way back in the 6th century BCE. Solon then passes it down through his own family line, and eventually it hits a guy named Critias who finally recounts it in Plato's dialogue. It's an absolutely brilliant framing device. It was explicitly designed to make a purely philosophical thought experiment sound like a verified, rock-solid historical record. And of course, the story comes crashing down in one cataclysmic, world-ending event. Plato writes, "But afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea." Just think about that. That single dramatic sentence birthed a global obsession with a sunken civilization. But, and this is absolutely crucial to remember, for nearly 2,000 years after he wrote those words, scholars universally understood this as just a literary device. It was an allegory, a myth used to make a larger point, and absolutely nothing more. Section 2. The Victorian Revival, the Paradigm Shift. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this rational understanding held perfectly firm for centuries, right up until the 19th century. Suddenly, this dormant philosophical allegory just mutated into a massive pseudoscientific craze. And the guy primarily responsible for this radical shift was an American writer named Ignatius Donnelly. In 1882, he drops this hugely influential book called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, and the sheer audacity of his theories is kind of wild. He vehemently argued that Atlantis wasn't a myth at all, but factual history. He claimed it was the literal Garden of Eden, the exact spot where humans first achieved civilization, the origin of the alphabet, the inventors of bronze and iron, basically the ultimate mother civilization that birthed everything from the Egyptians to the Mayans. He single-handedly drew up the modern blueprint for the fantastical Atlantis we talk about today. And man, the idea spread like wildfire. The myth radicalized so fast and just went completely off the rails almost immediately after Donnelly's book. By the late 1880s, the famous occultist Madame Blavatsky aggressively folded Atlantis into her spiritual movement, Theosophy. She was claiming Atlanteans were this magically advanced root race of humanity. Fast forward a bit to the 20th century, and you've got the clairvoyant Edgar Cayce doing life readings, telling everyday people they were reincarnated Atlanteans. Cayce even boldly prophesied that the lost continent would literally rise from the ocean floor in the 1960s, which, spoiler alert, definitely did not happen. So in less than a century, the story had completely detached from Plato's cautionary tale of Greek hubris and become this permanent cornerstone of modern esoteric spiritualism. Section 3. The Minoan hypothesis, science and speculation. So, while the mystics were out looking for sunken crystal empires, 20th century scientists and historians took a totally different route. They started looking for actual verifiable historical events that might have inspired Plato in the first place. To understand this, we need to talk about geomythology. It's an awesome concept. Basically, it's the rigorous study of the real geological reality behind ancient myths. It explores how a real, terrifying natural disaster leaves deep, lasting cultural scars on a society. Those scars get passed down orally through generations, they get exaggerated over time, and eventually, they morph into the wild legends that get written down centuries later. And if we're looking at the ancient Mediterranean, there is one cataclysmic event that fits this bill perfectly, the Thera eruption. Around 1600 BCE, this absolutely massive, apocalyptic volcano blew its top on the island of Thera, which you probably know as the tourist hotspot, Santorini. This wasn't just a regular eruption. We're talking about one of the absolute largest volcanic explosions in all of recorded human history. The blast was so powerful that the entire center of the island literally collapsed into the boiling sea. That generated colossal, towering tsunamis that totally devastated the incredibly advanced Minoan civilization living over on the nearby island of Crete. And this brilliantly illustrates the archaeological parallels between Plato's fictional Atlantis and the real-world Minoans. I mean, it's staggering. The Minoans had advanced multi-story buildings, highly sophisticated indoor drainage systems, intricate art, all perfectly mirroring Plato's descriptions of untold wealth. Plus, before the volcano went off, Santorini actually had a distinct circular island geography. And yeah, it suffered sudden, violent destruction by an earthquake and a tsunami. It's an incredibly compelling theory. But there are some massive holes here. The timeline is off by about 8,000 years, and crucially, Santorini is firmly located in the Aegean Sea. It is nowhere near the Atlantic Ocean or the area beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Which leads us to a highly fascinating pivot in our modern story. Ask yourself this. Considering how these ancient texts get translated, repeatedly misinterpreted, and radically reimagined over the centuries, what if the Lost City of Atlantis was never actually in the ocean at all? Section 4. Searching the Globe, the Modern Detective Hunt. Today, we've got a whole new wave of amateur sleuths, internet investigators, and rogue archaeologists searching the entire globe for Atlantis. They're looking everywhere from the bottom of the Mediterranean basin to the dry deserts of Africa. But the problem is that a lot of these theories selectively pick and choose which of Plato's specific clues to believe and which to just conveniently ignore. Take Santorini. Yes, it sank in a day, and yes, it had that ringed shape, but it completely fails the location test. It's not beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is what the ancients called the Strait of Gibraltar. Then you have places like Sardinia, which has intriguing underwater ruins, but completely lacks the concentric rings. And then there's the Eye of the Sahara in Mauritania. It confidently sits right beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and it features incredibly distinct, massive concentric rings of land. This spot, officially known as the Richat structure, has become a viral sensation online over the past few years. And you can see why. Visually, from space, it perfectly matches Plato's highly specific description of concentric circles of alternating land and water. Proponents passionately argue that the salt found scattered across the desert there proves it was once a submerged island washed over by the ocean. But, well, actually scratch the whole ocean thing. When we look at the hard, peer-reviewed geological evidence, the fantasy just falls apart. It's an eroded geologic dome. It was never a sunken island. That salt, it actually comes from ancient freshwater rivers that flowed through the area during Africa's humid period tens of thousands of years ago, not from some violently receded ocean. Section 5. The enduring metaphor, why we can't let go. So, the crucial point is, if hard science firmly tells us it's not hiding in the Sahara Desert, and dedicated historians tell us it was simply a Greek allegory invented by Plato, why in the world are we still endlessly talking about it today? Well, because Atlantis has always acted as a mirror for humanity. Plato's original warning was about a powerful society utterly destroyed by imperial greed and moral decay. It was a direct reflection of his own personal anxieties about ancient Athens. And today, our modern warnings reflect our own distinctly modern anxieties. We look at Atlantis and we see a civilization threatened by its own technological hubris, rampant environmental exploitation, and climate-induced sea level rise. We continually project our own deepest, darkest fears about civilizational collapse right onto this ancient blank canvas of a sunken city. Ultimately, Atlantis isn't just a physical place waiting to be found. It's a timeless story about human fragility. It forces us to take a long, hard look at our own highly advanced, deeply globalized world and realize that nothing we build is truly permanent. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. If our own modern civilization were somehow swallowed by the sea tomorrow, what myths would the struggling survivors tell about us 9,000 years from now? Would we be remembered as the utopian heroes of a golden age, or as the ultimate cautionary tale of a society that destroyed itself? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.